And we're live. And this is Melanie and the Oneness Talking Point webinar series, which is a free thing I decided, or was decided, for me to put out there. And you can find this on theonenessexperience.com. And I put the subject line surrender last week when I created this, so that people had a chance to know that it existed if they wanted to come and be part of the conversation or book it in to watch it later. And I guess I just wanted to start by saying that no matter what the subject is on these conversations, we're going to end up talking about the wholeness of oneness. Because for me, there's no way to put it into steps. It's not a process. There's no way to divide it into segments. So we'll kind of rehash oneness every time we have these broadcasts. And it will be a different conversation, and you'll hear something new every time. But ultimately, we're talking about the same thing. So I'm just going to read the pages that I wrote this morning. I wasn't sure how I was going to prepare for this webinar, and it turned out with the schedule this week of divine timing, just following what was in front of me, that I just spent this morning, the last probably hour, just writing in a conversational style. So it's not the same as when you just live it, ad lib it. But this is the way I've been asked to do it this morning. Okay, so this week I thought we'd talk about surrender. It's a big part of what we do in the self-help and healing world of oneness as a goal versus oneness the experience, which is the name of the website where you can find this video series and other resources about oneness, theonenessexperience.com. And the reason I bought that URL is the same reason I do everything I do. It's what I'm instructed to do in my oneness experience, where everyone and everything is what is. So instead of having an end game or a middle path in the oneness experience, life is. There's no need for assessment or striving towards something else. No need for enlightenment or balance. For these things, these states of awareness and being, are achieved by looking back on who you have been or looking ahead to who you might become. Whereas the oneness experience, we are paying attention. Doing what we're told, I guess, is another version of that. There are many ways of articulating what is done in the oneness experience, but I think simply being is the most accurate. Sometimes paying attention means crying for no perceptible reason, which can be confusing for those around you, those who live in a world of causes, people who want to help and to be on your side, people who think crying is bad or negative or distressing. Turn the page. People who see chaos in some things and flow in others. Whereas in the oneness experience, everything is flow. Everything is one, and crying is just as sacred as any other experience we are asked to have, just as fleeting and causeless as any other moment. And the people around you who want your crying to stop and don't understand your oneness experience as sacred, instead of believing their part to be an outside interference, you accept and honor your so-called reaction to their beingness as sacred. Which is why your relationships are no longer about fairness and loyalty, because everyone and everything is part of what I like to call your cosmic conversation. So as you navigate what looks like their moods and your so-called reactions, you accept it all as part of the intuitive instructions that urge you to feel this, do this, say this, and so on, all in this now moment. So rather than feelings building up over time, you trust the way you feel right now is on purpose. And this trust allows you to have the experience without explanation or cause. So when your friends ask, "What's wrong? Why are you crying?" you tell them whatever you're instructed to say. But how do you know what that is? How do you know what you're being instructed to do? How do you know it's not just your ego or your hormones taking over what might otherwise be a very different conversation? These are common questions of the oneness experience. You want to know for sure what's purely intuitive instruction and what's a contamination of that message. But oneness doesn't work like that. There's no purity. There's no ego. There's no getting it wrong. And there's no getting it right either. Oneness is without levels and layers. It is without evolution and learning. It recognizes everything as sacred, and it values all things equally, which is not to say you have an equanimous life. Oneness doesn't smooth your path or make you rich. It is what is, and nothing more. The perfection of all that is includes our tears and doubt. It includes the whole rainbow of behaviors and sensations, because it is all that is. There's no above and below in oneness. It's all one pool, one field, one moment constantly rearranging itself like a thin layer of sand shaken in each moment to reposition its grains, or a fountain reorganizing the same pool of water. There is nothing added or taken away from oneness. It is whole and complete in any one moment, even in the experiences of what we call suffering. By dividing the world into dark and light, we have an experience of preference, and this preference gives us a language upon which to build our dreams. But in oneness, there is the spectrum, which has no borders, no divisions of light and dark, just gradations through a single wholeness where all is equally sacred. Similarly, by dividing the world into chaos and order, we allow ourselves an experience of wanting and not wanting in the hierarchy of judgment upon others as the source of our suffering, judgment upon ourself as the savior responsible for ending our suffering. But in oneness, there is only order. All things make sense when they need to and feel like chaos when you need to have that experience. The only difference is surrender. Surrender is also an experience. Rather than the act of surrender, which requires us to denote some things within our control and other things beyond our control, surrender the experience is about trusting what feels like chaos, what looks like distress, what seems unfair, to be what is. Surrender is a way of being. And in the oneness experience, being is inseparable from doing. It might feel like we are the source of something, but we trust there is no way to draw a line around who we are, and therefore no point from which to be a source of anything. No soul, no identity, no fixed point of I that can ping-pong against some separate other I to be of influence, which might sound like a whole other topic of conversation until you have the experience of surrender as an everyday thing. The surrender experience of waking up and not knowing who you are because you've surrendered knowing in favor of the mystery. There's still a job waiting for you to go to, and teeth to brush, and all the things we equate with the everyday, but none of the mixed motives. In surrender, the not knowing never steps aside so you can get this done or meet that deadline or pay that bill. Those elements are conditions, forever changing, allowing you to have an experience of surrender. Those conditions don't say anything about who you are. They're not a reflection of your inner world because there is no separation of inner and outer in oneness. No outcomes, no goals, no lessons, challenges, or opportunities. Just what's in front of you right now, asking you to be present as you, the equal and essential aspect of all that is. But that's how oneness and surrender makes sense to me in my experience, according to my intuitive instructions. The only thing that really matters is how surrender makes sense to you. After all, only you know what is true for you. And that's all there is. So thanks for watching. This is a short one today, and I never know what's going to happen next. So I'll set up the call for next week and I'll see what the universe asks me to make the topic. But in the meantime, if you want to check out howtobemedicine.com or theonenessexperience.com, feel free to have a look at those resources. And there's free things that you can sign up for and have a play with, and there's paid things that you can sign up for and have a play with. And I'd love to hear from you any feedback or suggestions, and we can do that next week. Have a fantabulous day.